Hey, it's me again. So, for those of you who know, at the same time I've released this, I've also released Star Wars: The Force Awakens spoiler review. This review over here is mainly for those people who don't want to see the spoiler review because they haven't seen the new Star Wars yet. Now, by now most people have seen it, but I can understand if a few people haven't yet. So, for those people who don't want to watch the spoiler review, this is for you guys. And for those of you who did see the spoiler review, this is for you guys as well. So yeah. And right now, I'm reviewing Blade Runner: The Final Cut. And let me make this very clear. I'm not reviewing the original Blade Runner, for those of you who know what it is, because the final cut is the director's cut, the final director's cut, as it says. And the original, I haven't actually seen the original properly, okay? I have seen the final cut fully, about twice, and so I can't really compare too much. However, I do know all of the changes that happen between the two, or most anyway, so I can tell at the very least if I'm going to compare, maybe a little. I'll compare a little between the two because I know what the changes are, and I can understand some of them. Now, let me get to this quickly. Blade Runner, for those of you who don't know, was made in 1982, and it was a sort of sci-fi movie directed by Ridley Scott, who before had done Alien, and it made sense because Ridley Scott's Alien made a huge amount of money, so people thought that if he got to do Blade Runner, which is also sci-fi, it can make a lot. It didn't, no. This movie was a huge flop when it was first released. It made a really small amount of money, especially compared to its budget, and so a lot of people were disappointed by that, mainly the producers, and it didn't get a very positive response when it was first released. But then they started making a few director's cuts of the film. One of the biggest ones was the director's cut made in sometime in the 90s or 2000s. I'm not entirely sure now. I just know it was made sometime in the 90s or 2000s. But what I know about it is they gave away, I think, 2 parts of what happened in the original, or maybe that was in the final cut. I don't know precisely, but it was in one of them. They gave away 2 parts that just about everybody did not like about the original. The first part was there was the main character, Rick Deckard. He has this sort of narration over the whole movie, and it's kind of annoying, really, to hear all that when you can just piece it together yourself, and the fact that they took that out so you could do that is great, and that's a really great thing to do. Second of all, is that they took out the ending, and this is the important part, okay? I'm not going to tell you what the ending is, because that would mean spoiling this movie a lot. But I will tell you, once you see this ending, the cut ending, not the original ending sucks, okay? The original ending is sort of really happy thing, and it's not very well put together and really cheesy. The one that is now, I'm not going to spoil it, okay? I'm not going to spoil it. Not spoiling it. Look, this ending is really ambiguous. Like, it's not like 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's not like there are a huge amount of theories. There's 2 theories to have. And when you watch it, you'll definitely choose on one side. And whichever side you choose, that's good. Although I will tell you, if you are curious, Ridley Scott has admitted to the answer of that. If you are curious in any way, or if you just want to see it for yourself, then that's fine. Just do that. So yeah, basically like that. And so this movie, which I'm reviewing, is The Final Cut, which was made in 2007. It was the final director's cut of all the Blade Runners. Now, the way most director's cuts work is that they take away from the movies. Mainly like the Star Wars director's cuts, the original trilogy. Those director's cuts feel very unnecessary, and they take away a lot from the movies. But Ridley Scott does really great things with director's cuts. He's very special with that. Like, I haven't seen Kingdom of Heaven, but I hear that his director's cut made that movie a lot better than it was considered before, so that's great. I might watch that sometime, I'm not entirely sure. But this is, by far, the best director's cut ever made, because it improves on the original so much. The original movie, Blade Runner, was a good movie. It was entertaining. You can watch it. You can have a good time. Blade Runner: The Final Cut is one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. That is really saying something. This movie is absolutely awesome. Here's why. First of all, if any of you have seen a previous video of mine where I said the 5 worst Academy Award wins of all time, one of those was for E.T., Best Visual Effects, which this movie lost to. And seriously, these effects are awesome. When you see these effects, it's like you've been introduced to an all-new world. Because these are like the first ever flying cars. The first flying cars in movies. And that was awesome. The cityscape in this movie is like the way people envision the future ever since that movie came out. Because it's just great. The way it looks. And the way it's also seen politically. Because you see all these advertisements in the city. Like you see... see Coca-Cola and all that. And this is what happened. This is what's happening today. You see all those billboards and those, holograms and stuff happening today on screens and all. And that's what happens in this movie. It feels like it's actual reality. And yes, there are flying cars, but it makes sense. This movie was made in 1982. It's set in 2019, so this is never going to happen. But back then, it felt like it could, and so that's really great. And it's a really great way of envisioning the future, really influential. I really loved the way they did it. And it's often considered one of the best sci-fi movies since 2001: Space Odyssey, really. And it is. It is the best sci-fi movie since then. Because this movie is just so great. Like, I've already touched on the effects and the ending, but also because the characters as well. Like, Rick Deckard is an anti-hero in this movie because he has to hunt down replicants, which are basically these sort of, like robots that look like people and act like people. The only difference is they don't have the emotion of people. And you see, he's a really complex character because he wants to hunt these down, and so you understand that because they're robots, and you think it's the right thing to do. But also, you're introduced to the robots, and they actually have a lot of emotion to them. For instance, Rutger Hauer, who plays Roy Batty, as much as I loved Harrison Ford in this movie, Rutger Hauer steals this movie. This movie is his. He is a great villain, a complex villain, and he's not like the sort of villain that you hate. He's not a really bad guy. You can understand where he's coming from. And that's awesome. I just loved his villain in this movie. And his portrayal, his acting was awesome. This is a great performance and a really likable villain. Also, Daryl Hannah plays Pris, who's also one of the replicants in this movie, and she was awesome, I thought. Also a complex character, and really well portrayed on screen in the costume design and all that. I thought that was great. And the choreography and certain fight scenes and stuff, that was awesome. So yeah, this movie has some really great scenes due to great effects, great acting, great tension, and just great directing. Because the way Ridley Scott directs this is great. I just loved it. And the way the story goes, it's interesting, it's intriguing. You don't understand everything, and that's great. And the ending is one of the best endings ever. Seriously, this is one of the best endings ever. It's really ambiguous, and it wasn't in the original, but it is now, and it's really ambiguous. It's really hard to tell between the two sides. I'm not going to say what they are, but it's really hard to tell, and it's just really great how it keeps you guessing for this because it just seems so much like one way. And I'm going to tell you this, it's not going to spoil it. I'm just going to tell you. In one scene, Rick Deckard has a dream of a unicorn. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to say that the unicorn is a really big signature for this movie. That's all I'm going to say about that. So yeah, this movie's well acted, well directed, well paced. And it's really tense. It has some of the best visual effects since 2001: A Space Odyssey. Probably the second most realistic effects of all time after 2001. They still hold up today. They're still great. It's an awesome movie. It does it so well. It's not dated in any way I can tell, except for the future aspect, because it doesn't feel that way these days. But otherwise, it is a really well-made movie, and I really loved it. It's something that I can sufficiently say is my second favorite sci-fi movie of all time. And that is really saying something because my favorite sci-fi movie of all time is also my favorite movie of all time, which is 2001: A Space Odyssey. And this movie is my second favorite sci-fi movie. It would definitely be in my top 10 movies of all time. I love this movie. It's definitely worth checking out. Watch the director's cut. Don't watch the original. The original's fine, but the director's cut is awesome. It is definitely worth watching. I'm going to give Blade Runner, the final cut, a 10 out of 10. Yeah. So I really love this movie. You should definitely check it out if you get the chance. And try to make it the final cut because that is the best version. Now, as well as that, what I'd like to mention is they are about to make a sequel in a few years, Blade Runner 2. And I'm really looking forward to that because I love this movie. And now Denis Villeneuve, who did Sicario, which was my favorite movie of this year, is going to direct it. And I am really pumped for that because he's a great director. He's doing really well with Hollywood today. And he still has one more movie to come out before Blade Runner 2, which is also meant to be a sci-fi. And I'm definitely going to watch that movie. I might review it. And so look out for that. And I might put it up whenever it comes out. It should be a bit more than a year, I'd say, but when it does come out, I hope you look forward to it. So, as always, I hope you like this video. Tell me what you thought about this, and comment below. If you've seen the movie, you can comment about it, but don't spoil anything, because this ending is really great, and I don't want it to be spoiled. So yeah, have a bit of self-respect, don't spoil this stuff, just keep it to yourself, write a few comments, no spoilers in there, and so yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And if you like this video and the other videos I've done, then please subscribe. I'll have more up as well. If you don't like this video, then subscribe, tell me, and I'll have different kinds of videos which you might like more. Okay? So, hope you like this, and I hope you watch the new Star Wars if you didn't see the spoiler review, because the new Star Wars is worth watching. So, as always, you don't have to go while you got Timo.